Aloha mai kako. I'm supposed to jam through this so we can get to the main event. But it's hard to follow the kukuena, so it was wonderful. Anyway, I'm Catherine Vescio. Everybody knows me as KB. And I was given the honor of opening and introducing Pelika Andrade. So I'm just going to say a few words about the TCBES graduate program. But first I want to thank John Price, my colleague, who yielded the floor to me for this presentation. But anyway, also to thank all the other faculty at TCBES. So which is forward here? Okay. So as most of you know, it's the 20th anniversary of TCBES. And I'm sort of a relative newcomer as a faculty member, although I've been around, but not quite since the beginning of the program, but almost. Anyway, but the mission of the program is to foster theory and techniques in conservation biology and to promote scholarly activities in marine and terrestrial environments that will enable participants to pursue careers in research and natural resource management. So graduates of the program have been really successful. We have now graduated 270 students since the beginning of the program, and there's 54 faculty across different programs at the university who are participating. There are people who have really been stalwart supporters of the program since the beginning, you know, Pat and Becky, John Price, Tracy, and everyone who really does all that hard administrative work for TCBES. So the program began in 2004, as we said. We affiliate with more than 50 organizations, and we now have, about 10 years ago, the internship program was started, and that has really kind of changed the character of the program in some ways, but also broadened our extent of where people are going and what they're doing. So we really want to mahalo all those people who have been a part of the program. Let's see, where am I? So the thesis track, there are 2 tracks in the program, and this is sort of a more traditional, you know, master's thesis. It's a 2-year program. We prepare graduates for technical positions and for entry into PhD programs. Students conduct original research guided by faculty and their advisors. So as Drew mentioned, many of our students concentrate their work across the islands from, you know, the northwest part of the islands to, you know, here to everywhere that they can go. And so it's really, they do a public thesis defense, they write a thesis, and often publish their findings in peer-reviewed journals. The internship track, as we said, we started in fall 2018. Students in this track conduct 600 hours of internship work and have an immersive experience. Many of our students work on Hawaii Island, but the internship track takes them elsewhere as well. Okay, a little bit about the symposium. It's put on annually, and it's planned, organized, and run by the Graduate Students Club. And so we want to thank all of those students who put in lots of time and effort, you know, this year, last year, putting together this great program and making it run so smoothly. They do everything from organizing the theme to inviting speakers. So well done to all of you. I want to give you all a round of applause. And there's students outside as well who've been actively involved in putting together this symposium. So we want to mahalo Sibley, Josie, Bree, Naya, Anna, Ariel, and Olivia. And I don't know if everyone is here, but
no, we're planning and running around.
What's that? Everyone's running around? Okay. All right, we want to give a special thanks to our keynote speakers. So Pelika Andrade, who's Executive Director of Namaka Ona, a nonprofit and extension agent for Hawaii Sea Grant. And tomorrow, Drew will be keynoting the day's sessions. So it's my pleasure to introduce Pelika to you. And I've known Pelika since she worked at Kealoha many years ago, and a lot of us were crammed into the spaces on Kanakaʻoli Hall with lots of students and this growing program to develop undergraduate students primarily for research, but bringing them into this fold of trying to work across epistemologies, from Hawaiian epistemology to a more Western scientific epistemology. So Pelika was hired to corral faculty and students in this program, but I was really excited to meet her. I went to graduate school with her father and had the honor of actually graduating next to Carlos, walking down and getting my degree, each of us on one side of our graduate advisor, Brian Merton. So that was really fun for me. And so I think Pelika, we were just talking, and both her mother and father graduated from UH Hilo. Pelika is a graduate of UH Hilo. So the whakapapa to UH Hilo runs really deep for her. So Pelika is originally from Kauai, and she has a long history of working with Hawaiian communities. And she's a community member, sailor, voyager, cultural practitioner, researcher, and she's rubbing her eyes because she just got dropped in from doing a day's field work yesterday, and she said she's still trying to orient herself to the ground here, not in the forest anymore. So for the past 12 years, she's been developing alternative approaches to monitoring Hawaii's watersheds and has been supporting the implementation of a management strategy that supports healthy, balanced communities in Hawaii. So I won't say any more to let her have the floor. I know she's really anxious to get here and to talk to you about the work that she's been doing, and that we're really proud of her as an alumni and as a friend and as somebody that we have a lot of aloha and respect for. So welcome, Pelika.
Hello, Kako. How are you guys doing? Do you mind if I don't use that? Is this all right? I'm loud. So yeah, thank you. I'm Pelika Andrade from Kauai. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you all for letting me be here and for being invited to come and talk to you all. Like KB said, I'm a little nervous and a little kind of just reorienting myself. I just got out of the mountains for 2 days. They literally from the helicopter went to the plane. So I'm still getting used to two people. Kind of like to walk around, that's why the mics don't work, and you guys are so far away. And I even made notes so I would stay somewhat on track. So as they're figuring that out, because this slide's gonna take a while, I just wanted to mahalo again once, all of you again for your time and for being here, for the work that you guys do. I'm really excited to learn more about whoever's speaking today, and to see what research is happening at UH right now. It's been, geez, when did I leave? Over 10 years since I've been on campus, really, with Kealoha and the Scholars Program then. And as it should, things keep changing and evolving, and we keep making steps and growing and maturing into these new spaces. So it's really exciting to hear about all of your work. Mahalo to Kaya Meaola Club. Did I say that? Kaya Meaola? For the invitation. I know Nai'a from years ago, and her mother and her family from Hilo, from all over the place, from the Makali'i Voyaging family. So it's really nice to have gotten that email and that invitation. So let's start. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about Pilina Pewa Āina Momona, and we'll get all into that. But Nai'a told me, hey, just tell us your story. Tell us what I do and all the lessons I've learned over time. And hopefully there'll be some value to all of you, whether it's just the laugh that you get from some crazy stuff that that has happened, as life should bring us, right? So before I get into it, who am I? KB said I was born and raised on Kauai up to the age of 10. I have two really hippie parents, or used to be hippie-ish parents, where they totally went off grid. So my first 10 years of my life, we were raising our own food, and like our closest neighbor was 2 or 4 or 5 miles away, right? We just roamed. And we also chased surf and wind. My parents were sailors and surfers. So we were one of those families, these local families that traveled a lot. If you grew up here in Hawaii, there's those families that just stay in one place, they don't pass the bridges one way or another, and then there's the families that roam, and we were one of those roaming families. I left when I was 10, and we actually came here because my parents were starting their academic journey, or finishing their academic journey. So we came here for 2 years, and I was out in Puna with my grandmother and grandfather, who she used to teach at Pahoa, so I spent a couple of years there. Went to Oahu for KS, and I spent 6 years at Kamehameha. And then by that time, my parents both had their, what we would call terminal degrees, right? Top of the top. And were starting their own programs at UH Manoa. And like every child does, they go far away as possible from their parents, right? So I came back to UH Hilo. And again, right, what did we know when we're 17? Started sailing. Again, my father is a voyager with Hokulea, and we have this beautiful canoe here on this island, Makali'i. And I wanted to sail so bad because I grew up with it, but I didn't want to sail on Hokulea because that's from my father. That was my father's canoe. So I went to Makali'i, right? The opposite. I just hit every opposite direction of my parents, which is ironic because I landed exactly where they are. So that's the other lesson of life, right? And dropped out. And then I had 3 children. Met my ex-husband, had children, and spent about 20 years in Waimea. And through that journey, returned back to school because the way that my brain worked and the way that my relationships ran, I needed to do more, and I needed to contribute more. So now I'm back on Kauai, touching back into the communities where I started my life. Those are my formal hats. Is I'm executive director for Namaka Unauna. We're a nonprofit. Just do all of the work that we do. And I get to do it with a dual hat with UHC grant, with the college program out of Manoa. And it's a national program across the United States. And we get to jump around and have all of these great kind of inquiries that we cross-reference and everything. But my informal hat is a ho'aina. How can I explain that? A term that talks about our friendships and our relationships with the land and with the ocean and with our communities. So let's dig in, shall we? Okay, how does this? Do you want me to use the mic? Is this okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Again, remember I spent 2 days in the forest and in this valley with no people, so I'm still trying to get reoriented to this. Okay, so there's always a why. And I'm gonna encourage you to know your why. But also remember, I didn't know my why till recently. I was always doing my why. I didn't and couldn't articulate it till recently. But I think it's a really great exercise to know your why. When I was younger, my why was like, how do I get to next week, right? How do I get to next year? How do I get my degree? How do I get my job? And those are whys as we grow and that maturity happens. But think about why those things are important, right? Why did I want to graduate with my degree? I didn't have those thoughts until more recently, right? But know my why. My why is Āina Momona. Productive and thriving communities of place, of people, place, and natural resources. And in combination, it all comes together. And then there's the how and the what, right? There's this concept. Do you guys know what Pewa are? Oh, the red you can't see. Have you ever heard of Pewa? So this is another articulation that we've been doing, and we all do it all the time, but I haven't been able to really put it into this tangible thing. So Pewa are butterfly stitches in woodwork. Yeah, you know when there's fractures and there's cracks in wood, we put Pewa in. You can't really see it, Oh, it's in the face. You see that? That butterfly stitch? There, yeah. So they're meant to help mend fractures. Yeah, so when wood splits and when things like bowls and canoes and papa ku'iai and all of those things start to split, they'll clean out the wound and they'll put a pewa in it and then they'll refill it. And the beautiful thing about pewa is that process makes the original stronger, right? And it actually adds this really beautiful scar to the wood. And when we look at our communities, our aina, right, all of the things that feed us, all of our people and our places and the things that and our natural resources, there's fractures there. There's things that we did purposefully, we did unconsciously, right? There's fractures there. How do we insert these pewa, these butterfly stitches, to mend these fractures? And so that's kind of been my how and my what moving forward to Āina Momona. And so we have these tangible pewa, like nakilo aina, naka, pak, kuli'ia, ku'umo, olela, mahina, and I'll talk about them a little later. And then there's also these theoretical or these this intangibles of relationships, of safe spaces, of leadership, of service that we insert into our communities to help mend those fractures and those wounds. Why did I do this? So, Nakilo Aina is one of our foundational programs. And I say us because even though I'm usually I'm the fire starter and the stoker of the fire, it's so many people. Lessons and contributions and the building blocks come from so many people. So I use us very, very loosely. Right? Every little conversation we have adds to how we see the world and how we relate with the world. And Nakilo Aina has this pewa has offered all of these lessons and for us to really zero in on some really great building blocks and guiding principles for the work that I do and the work that we do. So Nakilo Aina is this program. It's over 15 years old. It started out here on the Big Island, out in Kauai High. We did a lot of research in Kalaimano and Kauai High. And I just want to touch on these two words, kilo and aina, because I know everybody uses it and everybody talks about it. And again, I haven't been in this community for 10 years now, so we'll see how updated, how our separate journeys intersect and how we understand these terms. So aina, what do people think of aina?
That which feeds.
That which feeds, so we're all updated, thank you. Yeah, before everyone's like, oh, it's land. I'm like, yeah, it's land, but not really, but yeah, right? So aina, ka'ai ana, the things that feed. And it's that relationship, the things that feed, but not so much feed. Can we think about but sustain? And from Hawaii and from the world, sustenance isn't a food thing, right? We feed mentally, we spiritually, emotionally, and physically, right? That sustenance, that holistic sustenance is important. So everything becomes aina that we have relationships with, right? I'm an aina to many people as they are to me, and they feed me in different ways. But the beautiful thing about aina in a Hawaiian relationship is that it's based on reciprocity, right? My aina may not be your aina because we have no reciprocal relationship yet. And there's levels of. Drew used the word sacred, right? These sacred places and how we interact with these places. I like to think of every place being sacred because it might not be sacred to me, or my reverence changes depending on that level. Right? That aina, that reciprocity, and how I engage. Right? So aina is all of these things that feed us in all those 4 areas. And what is kilo? Are we updated there? What's kilo?
Observation.
It is observation. It's kind of like land and aina, right? Yes, it's an observation. But give me more. Guys, can you give me more?
You get to know a place or a situation or a person by living with it and learning what's going on. You don't interfere, you just watch what's going on.
There's interference.
Oh.
There is interference, yeah? So kilo for me is the closest to the scientific method, yeah? It's not just an observation. That's part of the process of kilo. But there's inquiry, right? And there's a story to identify and an engagement that happens, and then you answer the question. Yeah, that's the scientific method, kilo, right? Because if you look at the clouds and you just say, oh, there's clouds, that's a na-na, that's a look. But what is the clouds telling us? What is the story that we're hearing? And how is it now guiding a question that I need to ask and a decision that I need to make? Historically, we had kilo hoku, kilo lavaita, we had all of these kilo. They didn't just watch fish. They were the advisors of that area to give advice and to move politics and society along. Yeah? They were the inquiry people. They were the scientist people. Yeah? So for me, kilo is that process. It's our scientific method. Na kilo aina, observers of the many things that feed us and sustain us. How do we get to know a place so well that that reciprocity is equal? And healthy. And you guys all know this, right? Forest restoration, great thing, right? Plant trees, right? Right? No? Yes? Maybe. Some places don't trees don't belong everywhere, right? So this is that na kilo aina. Are we just gonna do something because in our heads and in society it's that good thing, right? That warm fuzzy. Or are we going to understand that aina well enough that our contributions and our reciprocity to it optimizes the success of it? Think about people. You'll love me different from my cousin. Like warm fuzzies will just stay away, right? We all are aina bases too, and we all receive and give very, very differently. So one pouring of emotion to one person looks very, very different from another. It's kind of the same thing. But we don't know that unless we kilo, yeah? So that's our program, and that's how we kind of move through space. And our guiding principles from this journey have been Pilina, relationships. Everything is based on relationships. How we see ourselves, how we see others, our relationship with others, relationship between others, and our relationship between places and things and the rain and the wind and all of it. Relationships guide everything that we do. Another guiding principle is be present and paying attention. And we laugh about this all the time, but people don't do this. Yeah, you guys think you guys do this. How long, who's been in Hilo for over 5 years? Okay, those that have lived here for forever, right? But think about it, right? We've been here for quite a while now. Can you tell me the birds and your bird people and your plant people around? Do you know them all? We're present. Do you know where the winds come from during the summer? Do you know where they come from the winter? When do the UFO clouds come on? Because they do, right? February, March-ish. Yeah? When does the snow fall, usually? Do you know what it feels like before you see the snow? Right? So a lot of us are present in places, but we can't talk about those things because we're not paying attention. Because our attention is very limited. Guess what? To relationship. Right? So as you broaden your relationship, you start to broaden how you are present and how you pay attention. And that's huge in our journey. Mana'olana to mana'o'io. And here's some beautiful words because it's been said in so many different ways. Makahana ka'ike, right? Manu Meyer talks about this. This is where I got this concept, these terminologies from, because the concept is everywhere. Mana'o, ideas and concepts. Lana means to float. So they're the theory, the things that float around us. We've never touched, but we can talk about it. And we do that a lot in the university, yeah? Talk about a lot of things, yeah? And it's valuable, and it's great. It has a part in this building and this journey. But a lot of it is turning it into mana'o i'o. I'o is flesh. So we want to do these thoughts over and over and over again to our body. It's embedded in our flesh. And I was reminded recently by a friend, and then you want to go back to mana'o lana. Because the mana'o lana will change. And then you do that and do that and do that, and then you go to mana'o i'o. The cool thing, if you're a language person, what does mana'o lana mean? It's a hope. And mana'o i'o? Anybody? No language people? Drew. Truth.
Is it desire?
Mana'o lana is like a hope, desire. Desire is more i'ini, but mana'o lana, hope. Mana'o i'o is faith. and in my book, truth. Yeah? Another guiding principle is making realities yours and vice versa. So this is the change relationships. Lean into all of the relationships that you have around you. The reason why I can do the things that I do is because I'm not a hunter, but I hunt. Because it affects, not because I fell into it, I love it. I fish, I love it, but it affects how I engage in conservation and management. It affects how I inquire, and it broadens that perspective, right? Farming, same thing. But it also broadens our ability to be conscious and pay attention. And then utilizing multiple knowledge systems and tools. So here's the thing, and I think this will resonate with a lot of you, right? We have this like 20-year or more conversation, especially in the university, and I was a big part of it when I was in Ke'aholoa. And I'm still a big part of it, right? In all of these spaces, it's, how do we integrate traditional knowledge into Western science? Who's heard that? Right, I think it's in one of the presentations and stuff. Well, here's the conflict. Knowledge is a product of a system. So how do you merge a product into a system? Right? Am I wrong there? Knowledge is a product of a system. What we know now is a product of our inquiry. What our kupuna knew is a product of inquiry. Is it still true? Traditional knowledge that is 200 to 300 to 500 to 800 years old, is it still true? And are we being fair by taking this 800-year-old product and sticking it into a contemporary context and just fitting it in there to merge when it has no relevance or context to it? Or do we take the journey and the system to get to that knowledge and integrate that into our inquiry, our keynote, to bring new knowledge that is relevant today and may still be true, right? So I want you to think about that, because we have this conversation, how do we get traditional knowledge into contemporary inquiry or into Western science? And indigenous science is not indigenous knowledge. It's the process to acquire knowledge. So why can't we revisit the process to acquire knowledge? Right? There's a conflict there. So don't be scared of knowledge systems, but understand that what someone knew a while ago may still be true today. And a lot of the time it is. But there's a change, or the dynamic change, and hi, this is my friend Jamie. This is our Kealo Pico owner. Sorry, I'm just gonna tell, this is relationships right here that we talked about. The whole club has Kealo Pico on, by the way. I sent her a picture. I'm like, I have to send it. Yeah, she's putting me up so I can be here. Anyway, so knowledge systems, right? Lean into all of them. They all have lessons, right? They change relationships, which change perspective, which change how we inquire, how we're present, how we pay attention. Where am I? Okay, and then there's this beautiful guiding principle of revisiting narratives. And I think there's a talk about narratives. I think I saw that on the program. Revisiting and redefining our narratives and beliefs. What's the story and whose is it? And I think this is super important too, because we have healthy. Where's the button? Right? Is that the button? Okay, so you have 4 pictures. Tell me which one is healthy.
Which one is what?
Healthy. Yeah, we have 4 pictures. It's the same rocks, same papa. Which one's healthy?
Top right.
Top right. Oh, it looks beautiful. Agree?
I feel like this is a trick.
It is.
I bet you
I'm full of trick questions.
for every time of year or something like that, you know.
Yeah, they're all healthy. They're all healthy. It's just seasonal, right? But if I didn't understand that story, because society and training and academics to a certain degree tells us that that's healthy. That's not healthy. That's vehi. What is vehi? What's ulu vehi? what's the word? Lush. It's lush. So we equate in our minds because of narratives that lush equals healthy. Right? Doesn't look so good over here, but it's healthy. It's part of that seasonal change. Right? So whose story is healthy? Whose story is smart? Whose story is poor, disadvantaged? I just had, I'm in a cohort right now, and 2 Native First Nations sisters in their 50s were talking about they're getting their PhDs because they need to help their poor and disadvantaged community. And it just killed me to hear that. Because her definition of poor and disadvantaged wasn't her story. It was someone else's story that she took and put into her community. So when she talks to her community, she uses those words. An example she gave was her grandfather had to wake up early at 5. Oh gosh. Right? Walk down to the stream, get a bucket of water, bring it to the house so they could cook with it, and then walk to school. And then come home, feed the animals, play outside. Oh gosh, what a hard, disadvantaged life that was. I think all of us want that. Right? So whose story is it? And then we have literacy, productive and literacy. And we'll talk about those two as we move on. And someone has to tell me time. I'm a porigi. I'll just talk. Okay? So Indigenous literacy. Literacy. What is literacy? Our language movement, which is a beautiful language movement, talks about how Hawaiian we were one of the most literate nations in the world, right? And our focus of literacy is this written word. And then we bypass all of these other beautiful literacies out there that I think is coming out more, right? We have ocean literacy, all of these literacies, financial literacy, like, right? So literacy. Literacy basically is receiving information, processing it, and spitting it back out. That's what literacy is. So what's Indigenous literacy? If we can think of our landscapes as our knowledge repositories, because they are, yeah? Our ability to read them, how is that going? Not so well. We are very illiterate in reading the libraries that surround us every single day. How do we receive information from that? And how do we analyze it? And then how do we spit it out? That's kilo. Yeah? So Indigenous literacy is really honoring that interaction between our places and us. How do we honestly receive information from the outside? Broadly, through those relationships. Again, relationships, it's gonna keep coming up. So we've developed this process as close as we could to that traditional journey and that relationship. It's called Huli'ia, tracking seasons, letting a place contribute to its own narrative. And here's where the conflict is with what we're taught in school and taught in our communities, people communities, is like, if I wanna know about O'opu, go talk to A, B, C, D, E, right? Learn all you can from them. And then they tell us stuff, and then we jump in the river, and the river is telling us something opposite, but uncle said this, so it can't be so, right? We have this bias. We develop huge biases. So my journey, and the journey that I engage with others is, don't start with the bias, because that's their relationship. It doesn't mean it's not valuable. It just means that that's their relationship. Go have your own. So in the intertidal, in the stream work, and a lot of the work that I do, I usually don't talk to people first. Because as Hawaii, and my familial relationship with the lands and the winds and the rain and the trees and all of that, they are the eldest and most knowledgeable. I just don't understand them quite yet. But I gotta start to practice that. And to flush out as much bias as possible saves me some time because I'm not fighting against another idea. Yeah? So this process helps us kind of like build that capacity and build our literacy. We go in, and again, different from our systems here, the paper is not the end goal. It's a beautiful byproduct, but it's not the end goal. We'll talk about these concepts a little bit more, the end goals. The product is you and me. Yeah? Our communities, more literacy in our communities, more literate people in our communities, more people conscious of place, more people able to interact and receive information from their places. That's for us the end goal. And then we have these beautiful paper products after, regardless. So we calibrate and recalibrate to the places around us, right? We go through this every month. We get together and like, what's the dominant things that happened in our clouds and our wind and our rains and our temperatures and the humid, and then we just let people calibrate to their spaces. What's the plants doing? What's the birds doing? What's the animals doing? What's the pigs doing? Because regardless if they're invasive, introduced, whatever, they're still community members right now until we get rid of them, yeah? Shoreline smells like limu, a hole hole gonad's fat. And again, this is the knowledge thing, right? We're not supposed to see what our kupuna saw because winds change. Hamakua has changed over the past 30 years. When it was sugarcane, the winds acted a certain way. Now that there's eucalyptus, the winds don't behave the same anymore. And the rain behaves differently. It doesn't land. It gets pushed out, actually. So we're not supposed to see what they saw. But if we can see how they saw, oh, what's happening? Oh, low battery. If we can see how they saw, we can upgrade and we can recalibrate. Recalibration's happening all the time. And this is another knowledge, right? Another product of kilo, olelo no eo. Who's heard of olelo no eo? Gotta ask. Yeah, why sing? And my question is it a, olelo is sing, no eo is wisdom. Is it just the same? Is it actually wisdom? Is it both? Olelo no eo, what do you guys think? Is it why sings? Hala momona kaha uke uke. Beautiful olelo no ea passed to us. Knowledge passed to us. Because of someone's relationship. Is it valuable? For those that are saying yes, why is it valuable? Do you eat ha'ukiuke? Do you have hala in your backyards? Is it something you just say? It's not really that valuable if you're just talking about it. If it doesn't direct and interact in the world that you live in, it's kind of just something you say. It doesn't add value to your life. But it does to mine because hala and ha'ukiuki are beautiful things in my world. But it might not be in yours. When I lived in Kauai High, there's no hala in Kauai High. So I had to find another storyteller. And that is crown flower. Crown flower have the bud, the seed pods, and they burst. When they're bursting, momona kaha uki uke. Right? So this is, again, right, an instance where knowledge should be updated. And how we see the world is more important than what's being seen. Because there's always a recal. And then we have this beautiful one from Kalaimano. So we've been working at Kalaimano doing intertidal work for, since 2009, 9-ish. And we did Huli'ia for like ever, right? And we were able to take all of that information and put it into this beautiful image story of Kalaimano. But we also challenged ourselves to create new knowledge, right? So, when the boulder crashing waves arrive, the shelves become wet and limu pahe'e grows. Who's heard of limu pahe'e? Yeah, few people. Us too. We didn't even know what it was until we like stumbled on it and slid on it and we're like, what's this? Yeah, because it only comes out like 2 or 3 months out of the year, only if we have consistent wave action. Pretty cool. And then we did this with Holaniku, or Kure Atoll, up in our northwestern Hawaiian Islands, Papahana Mokuakea. And our field crews would send us monthly, informate all of the Huli'ia sheets. And we analyzed it and got some really great olelo no eo from it. But this beautiful story that happens up there is very, very obvious because people are less present. So the world around them is much louder, which is kind of beautiful, right? So ho ea mai ka eva eva kokoke kaha alele ano na nea ho'ilo. So when our our city turns, it's the most annoying bird ever. When they start to arrive in big numbers, summer. We're going into summer. Right, so we have these products, byproducts, if you will, of this one process of Huli'ia, to really engage in indigenous literacy. Give us a chance to allow the places and the non-biases tell us what's happening. and lean into that uncomfortable place, because it's really uncomfortable. Because if you talk to somebody who thinks they know and they don't know, super uncomfortable. But that's the journey, right? Okay, it's not going. Can we go in? So that's seasons. And then we have other olelo no eao that take us to moon, the moon cycles. How many of you have been on the moon cycle journey on Kaulana Mahina, right? And how much of you guys take knowledge and spit it out as truth? Everybody, don't lie. We all do it. We all do it. Right? Na ole kapo, na ole keo, he ole koloa. The nights are all ole. The days are ole. Nothing can be gotten. Pukui's translation, further of that is, the tide is high in the ole period and no fish are caught. I call bullshit. Right? So this is another product of kilo, of somebody, someplace, somehow, that got taken by somebody, someplace, some other place, somehow, other how, right? And then just kind of like, oh, this sounds smart. This is how I understand it. Outside of the context of probably the originator of the knowledge. And then we take it in, right? Because we're so hungry to like, oh, we gotta know what they knew, right? And we never update it. So that's Hule'ia fish pond on the left. These are ole days and nights. Super high tide, super low tide. And they're oles. And I'm going to explain oles to you real fast. And then we have these really dry times. But as a limu gatherer, they're the best times. Ole moons in spring and fall are the best times. And I'll explain why. So because I'm just curious, and my father was just like a pain in the butt and he made us be critical thinkers. How dare him, right? I had to question it. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to, I guess. So we have these ancestral instructions, but not what they saw, but how they saw. The context of season, moon cycle, place, lifestyle, and you in the Kaulana Mahina. So I went because I'm a pattern person, I needed to see it for myself, right, and just put it all out there. I went and I cut up a calendar, a tidal calendar, and I was just like, okay, the moon, most obvious thing with the moon is tides. So let me just see what patterns come up. And I cut it out, taped it all together, and this is what I found. You see those right, you see those right there? Red and green circles? That's just when the tide goes above the second line. Extreme highs, yeah? They only happen in new moons and full moons in winter and in summer. So across the board, we can't say new moons and full moons are high tide, low tide. Extremes happen seasonally within those moons, but not across the whole year. The correlation between full moons and new moons across the year is that the highest tide and the lowest tide are farthest apart in those moon phases. They get closer together in betweens. During the winter, that high, that extra high, we have two highs, two lows, right? The highest of the two happen in the morning. In the summer, it happens in the afternoon. So those other bits of wisdom that talk about, oh, it's low tide in the morning, it's a good time to go get blah, 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 call bullshit, right? Because context of season. So we have that going on. And then, next slide. We have this beautiful scientific terminology, mushink, right? So here's the cool thing about those pictures I showed you. There's this mushing that happens only in the ole moons in spring and fall, where two of our high tides merge to be one long high tide and the low tides merge to be one low. Super cool. And everybody thinks that in fall and spring on the ole moons we have extra low tides. It's not extra low, it's just extra long, so everybody sees it. So spring, extra long during the day, low tides. High tides are at night. Fall, extra high during the day, extra low at night. So we just fixed the fish pond wall for Hule'ia on Kauai and Menehune Fish Pond. Guess when? October ole moons when we had extreme high tides all day. So everybody had to swim through the wall, right? Would have been really, really good to do it here. I have programs here and I invite all my Limu friends over and we run around the reef the whole time because everything's exposed. And we have such a great window that we don't have to worry about the incoming tide because it takes forever, right? And there's other things so that productivity, right? This is the upgrade, this is the recal. Okay, next slide. Sorry, I think I'm like running out of time. I need to hurry this up. So that's externally. But now, if we can think of ourselves as Āina, so Huli'e, let me take a step back. Huli'e is about that literacy. How do we take that literacy and start to engage with it? Yeah, how do we take the knowledge repository of our world and start to listen to it and read it? But also now we're going into moons and looking at Āina. We're a very important Āina. It starts kind of with us. Because if we don't understand ourselves and our production and in the context of seasons, right? How do we now feed and contribute in a healthy, productive way to get that back, right? Reciprocity. This is all about reciprocity. So if we aren't in a place to feed properly, we're just gonna get crap back. Or we're gonna get good feedings, but we're not gonna know what to do with it, right? So it took me down the rabbit hole and we created this ku'u mo'o lelo, Onaport o Kamahina. And we really wanted to explore this you as an Āina. If the moon affected tides the way it does through seasons, right? Over moon phases and seasons, how does that affect us? And then how do we think about healthy in us? How do we think about productive in us? So my first go at it was in 2016. We just tried to do all kinds of stuff. But I was really interested in what is my personal story with the moon. Because again, I got tired of people telling me how I should feel because it's an ole moon, how productive I should or shouldn't be because it's a hilo moon. Like, how do you know, right? Because you're like, some kupuna put it down in a book, but if you asked the other 10 people that was in the room in the book, they wouldn't agree in the first place, right? Because could all of us agree that today is like really disorienting? I'm disoriented. Are you guys all disoriented? Oh, it is. Never mind. That example. Okay, but anyway, you know what I mean, right? Okay, so, and also really talking about productivity. We are not meant to be happy all the time. And it really took me down the other rabbit hole of like, what does healthy mean? If I look like that barren reef, am I still healthy? And the answer is absolutely yes. But again, the bias in the narrative of today is like, if you feel sad, right? Afraid, anxious, those are all bad feelings. You can't do that. But you have to really think about what is the productive capacity of those feelings and how does it feed overall health? Because it very much does. Next slide, please. So, geeky me, we go off into, and I teamed up with my friend Naya, and we created this moon journal. And it allowed us to quantitatively and qualitatively track ourselves and track other people. So, kino, physical energy, mana'o, mental clarity, na'au, emotional resilience. Notice I don't use any like positive, negative words. It's just like, right? And then I started to track the other things. And then we have this scale. Next slide, please. And if you take it across the whole one moon phase, you actually have this beautiful graph. Some look way different. If you're a drama person, you're just all over the place. I did this with like about 200 people in 30 days, and it was kind of fun. But like you could see some that were really trendy and others that were just like, so yeah. You knew who the drama ones were. Anyway, next slide. So I'm showing you mine because I have to be able to laugh about it. But also, if I'm gonna ask you to do it, I want you to know that I did. So this is what I found. That there are windows. We have windows states of being. And there's 3 major ones. And as I talk to more and more people, it becomes more and more true. So, I have a cocky window. It's not right now. I wish it was right now, but it's not right now. Almost. So, here's the funny thing, right? Ole moons. Everyone's useless, can't do anything. I start to climb in ole moons. Start to go up. The cocky window. Plenty energy, mental clarity, off the chart, emotional resilience, so you can't hurt my feelings. Right? That's when we charge. I do all the stupid things. At the full moon, I start to drop. And and I come down into stewing. I'm not too much of a drama queen, so my things stay around 3, like subtly or more subtly than others. You have a stewing window. What that means for me is nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. I know all of this stuff, but nothing, the dots are all there, I just can't connect them. And then the next is stars align clarity window, where now everything starts to make sense. So I call it stewing window because you just gotta miko. Just gotta let it go for a little bit. But then I had to go, okay, so what am I good at in these windows? Because I'm not good at the same things in different windows. Like cocky window, don't make me write a report. I cannot stay inside. Don't make me have long, well no, I can have long debates. That's called your cocky, right? But like, what I do, that's when you charge. You go surf, or you go hiking, or you go do your field work, or you go you do the presentation to people, right? That's ideal. You can do all of this in any state, but this is where it's optimal. Stewing, whew, nothing makes sense. So what do you do when you're stewing? I find myself cleaning, organizing, no thought, just the tasks, yeah? And then stars align, that's when everything makes sense. That's when I go down into it. I start doing the reports, and I do all of those things, yeah? Oh, it works, yes. Okay, and then paired with the numbers, we have this journaling. So channeling your inner geek, helping, being descriptive and honest. And this is hard for people, because no one wants to be honest about how sad they are. They don't. It's scary because the narrative that we carry. So this is my journal over 3 years, because I don't do it every day, right? Just go back. So what it looks like, let me go back, is every moon phase has a spread, and then every month has a place you can enter. So if it's a hilo moon, I go to the month that I'm in and I journal my feelings. Oh, I woke up really easy today. I could just get up and go, of course with coffee, right? My first interactions were really good. It was nice to see people, blah, 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 blah. And then, let's just say I open it up to kukahi or something, another moon. I find that spread, find the month, and I just am oh, I'm super precious today. Precious is my code word for I cry all the time or want to cry all the time, yeah? Question my value, my self-worth, what I'm doing. This is the, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing kind of thing. And it's healthy, because it humbles us a little bit, and it makes us rethink and reanalyze, reset. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna point it this way. Okay, so this is an example. And like huli'ia, things start to come out. They rise to the surface. And then now I know, for kukahi, this window that kukahi sits in, oh gosh, tired fast, easy, slow, I'm just floating, just float through this, just get through, right? And so now I have information. This is the kilo. I have information now that is very clean, unbiased, well, a little unbiased. Now I can make decisions. So what does that mean in other ways, right? So we talked about indigenous literacy on the outside. So huli'ia is one of the pewa that we are able to work with in our communities. And then this moon journal, which really helps us talk about our aina. And then we get into the stuff that you guys are doing, and that was born here at UH Hilo with Keaholoa and with Ku'ula. It's offered this semester, right? Hi Sharon, how are you? So I've been involved in OPH fisheries work for a really, really long time. And it started out with a project called Pilina Pewa. And the really cool thing about it is, again, relationships, right? We just dove in. We took Dr. Chris Bird's chain transect methodologies. We've been using that for OP transects. We developed huli'ia through this, so we're doing huli'ia on the side to parallel with what we were finding on the shoreline. We developed GI, gonad index work for OPH and ha'uki'uke. So we're doing a bunch of methodologies to understand the shoreline. And one of our things is too, right, back to Aina, how do we know this place so well, right? Take all those narratives out, that the impacts and the decisions that we make aren't negatively, or the least negative impact possible. So we did 10 years of intertidal. 10 years, guys. 10 years. So this stuff, right, we talk about our degrees and stuff. all valuable, but don't stop. Don't think you've gotten it once you got your degree. Like, we didn't figure out that we were on the wrong track until 10 years in. Then we had to reset. Right? I forgot my why. We were just going for it. Forgot my why. And conversations that we were in management and conservation weren't honoring Āina Momona. We were no longer talking about productive and thriving communities. We are talking about population sizes. We're talking about biodiversity. We're talking about all of those things that we talk about in these circles, and we did not connect them back into feeding, into production, holistic community-wide Āina Momona. We're creating more rifts in our communities, right? Whew, that's a big pill to swallow when you're in the middle of it and you think you got it. 10 years, guys. Reset. And that's the cool thing about it, we can reset, right? So is research getting us to thriving communities? And what's driving research? And when I ask that question, and I hope I don't hurt anyone's feelings in this room, I hope I do actually, because we have to think about this. Papers, publications, right? Degrees, CVs. Let's build our CV so I can get the raise and I can get the position. It's scary that the information or the research is driven by things that don't tie into productive communities. Scary, 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 scary. But guess what? Byproducts. If you tie your research into productive communities and that's the why, you can get your degree, you can get your publication, and you can build your CV, right? So you don't have to change what you're doing. Just change and understand that there's another goal here. So we changed directions. Now it's productivity and carrying capacity. And then we have to think about the community. So Opihi are in this bigger community. It's not just Opihi there, not there, 20, 200, like all of this stuff. It's super dynamic and diverse, right? Yesterday's considerations, they just want to know how much was out there. And then be like, if there's too much, let's take it. If there's too little, oh, it was taken, let's close it. And it's so much more complicated than that. It's so unfair, right? To judge our intertidal and our shorelines and this fishery like that. So what does productivity now look like on our shorelines? What drives it? What are the environmental factors that affect it? How does it change spatially and temporally? And how do we assess it? And the cool thing about what we found out and the framework we found out is it can be applied anywhere. We can apply it in people, in households, in businesses, in river systems, in watersheds, right? So, example, all shorelines are not created equal, by the way, right? So you can't judge one from the other. You can just understand them in their own places. We have boulders, we have papa, we have pali, we have all of that. We have leeward and windward. So even a pali shoreline on the windward will produce more than a leeward. Not get harvested more, produce more. There's gradient impact, wave gradient impacts, right? I said that backwards, but you can read, right? So, is there a reef? Is there a break wall? Is there something blocking it from wave action? And then we have these other salinity. We have sweet spots of salinity that like boost production. I'm gonna put that down because I'm not using it. We have seasonal growth and shrinkage. Those 4 pictures I showed you earlier. And then here's some beautiful numbers you all might understand. I just make them colorful because I'm just boring with the black and white. So the left one is habitat change through time. So it's the same. This one is, can you guys see it? My eyes are really, really bad. So this is a bowl. It's a type of shoreline. The other is a finger, and the other is a papa. So there's shelfie. And it's just the same one in different seasons. So that's habitat size. The left is in, guess, summer, fall. And the right is the same place, but in winter. Look at that. It doubles in size, habitat. So what do you think carrying capacity will do once a year? Well, double in size. And then what do you think happens when you have a double size and it shrinks back down to that? You're going to exceed carrying capacity and you have natural die-off. What do you do when you have natural die-off? And you like to eat the things that naturally are dying off. You go eat them, right? And what happens when no one's eating them and they naturally die off, and then a researcher comes through and doesn't understand that and goes, oh my God, we had 2,000 4 months ago and now we only have 5. Close it down. And we do some really huge damage. So that's that example. Habitat area in the pink zones. Mixed zones, we're gonna just skip that because I know I'm like too porky. Okay, again. I'm sorry, thank you. And then this is population size by impact zone. So this is a cool one because this is the impact zone. This is like high, medium, low impact, right? Wave action. The left is like 20 feet away from the next one, 20 feet away from the next one. These are all 3 transects in a row. Really close together, same numbers for the same day. And just because of that impact zone, you can see the population size being really, really different. So we gotta understand that too. So how do we create adaptive management based on that productivity now? So we have this whole management plan that we've been putting into our CBSFAs and our community-based fishery areas like Ka'upulehu. We're introducing it Ha'ena, Kaho'olave, and trying to get, here's the thing, they're management plans that need to be piloted and experimented on. The fact that we think that we can come up with this grand idea, put it into action and it works is crazy. Crazy, right? How many of you think are parents? Okay, good. The non-parents out there, how many of you think you have parenting down? Because you were raised, so you have some experience, right? Oh, I'd never do that to my kid. I said that, that's why I can do this, right? And then we're parents, and then we want to kill the kids, right? So, like, right, we gotta experiment. We need this window of experimentation in management and all of it. But we don't, as a society, don't allow that. So all of you going into management, please make sure that there's an experimental window and put into policy, please, and thank you. Okay, so because of that, we are able to, next slide, take that same format, like I said, and put it into stream work. So that's where I just came off of. We got flown into Napali on one of the topper valleys, and we were like climbing all over the place, sticking our head in, snorkeling in streams, right? The best thing that's super cold in rivers. So wetsuits. Well, we get to be in some of the most beautiful places on our islands. They're all beautiful, but like, so that's why I'm a little disoriented. I spent 2 days there. My body is super mad at me right now. But we get to inquire there. So we're only in year 8. So we got a few more years to go before we like recalibrate again. But what are the drivers? We know flow rate is important. We know flow niches are important. We know elevation's important. But there's no like real base rule. It's all fluctuating. You can't, again, right? Because of these river systems. Next. And just to introduce them, if you haven't seen them before, here's some of our guys that we get to look at. Right? We have Nakea, we have the Naniha, we have Alamo'o, Nopili, and then the Fupaikuahivi. Akupa's not in there. He's a grouchy old guy. Next slide. Okay, so again, recalibrate, reset. I've been doing this for a little while, but there's always this reset that has to happen. I'm currently in a PhD program, and we are forced to look at positionality. And it's something we all do, but I don't think we have this conversation enough, right? Just like know your why. You might not know why, but like think about it. This is another thing you should think about. Where do I stand in the world? How do I see the world? How am I visioning? So we have all this PEVA, and we're doing all of this work, but we're trying to heal our communities. And at the end of the day, people are the cause of all of it, right? If people weren't here, none of this would be important, because nature would just go on with itself, right? So we're the important ones. So how do I engage with our people community? How do I honor history? How do I understand it, right? So I had to, for the current phase in my life, really look at my positionality, really explore the people and places that raised me. What does that feeding look like? And how do I reciprocate that back? Relationships again, right? From my parents, from the communities and places, and also from my ex-husband. You spend 20 years with someone, you learn a lot about yourself, or after you learn a lot about yourself, yeah? And here's the cool thing, the failure of it is the greatest lesson. I wouldn't be here without all the failures. So don't be scared of failures, that's the thing. Realizations, Āina Momona. We talk about Āina Momona all the time. I know I'm not the only person saying these words. But have you ever thought what that lens looks like? Do you see the world in Āina Momona? We can't dream for it if we don't see it. And I'm talking about seeing the world through the lens of surplus and not deficit. That's big, because we see the world through deficit, how much I don't have, how much I should be getting, right? Like all of this deficit, the characters that I don't have, right? The things that, how do we get to Āina Momona if we're always addressing and engaging and interacting with the world through a deficit instead of a surplus? So really having to look through at everything around me at the potential of its feeding and not of what the lack of feeding. And that's hard too, because you see people differently. Cream of the cream, I'm gonna skip past that. Generational trauma exists on both sides. This is important because I know most of you have come across this word called colonialism, right? It's huge. It's part of that whole Western, how traditional knowledge conversation, right? How do we, I hate they say they like combat it, but it's really a reconciliation. How do we reconcile the history of that? One thing that I knew, because I'm Native Hawaiian, right? So I take the Native Hawaiian stance, the indigenous people stance, right? And up until recently, well, maybe about 8 years ago, I was just like, no, like this is us, we're doing this, colonialism, colonialism. And though I had friends and I honored different systems, I very much was like, first and foremost, we are the victim and we need to take back power. And I know I'm not the only one who says that, or feels that. Again, we gotta be honest with ourselves. I was in New Zealand. I do a lot of gatherings and exchanges, and I was in New Zealand, and we had this indigenous exchange. We had 3 non-natives there. 1 I brought, and 2 they brought, all younger than me. And this young 26-year-old doctor was a part of it from South Africa, which is like, holy crap, right? And we temperature checked everybody. And I didn't listen to him. I didn't want to talk to him. I'm just like, he got nothing to teach me. Whatever. He's younger than me, white male. And he blew my mind because he said that, sorry, I'm tired. And it's super emotional because what he said is, he says it's in times like this, excuse me. It's in times like this where he carries the responsibility of his lineage, right? Up until this point, as a Native Hawaiian, all the responsibility that I wanted to carry was empowerment of our people, of Native rights, of indigenous empowerment, right? That's a lot of the journey, that's a lot of the conversation. And it's important, it's not important. But I never did think for a second that that trauma carried on another side of the line and considered it. I also have 3 children. I'm gonna be a grandparent. My son is having a baby in July. But what hit me about that is everything that we're doing as indigenous people is colonialism backwards. Think about it. We shame people because they can't speak Hawaiian, right? Who's been part of the one or the other? Or felt shame because you couldn't speak Hawaiian or your native language, whether you're Hawaiian or not. So we shame people for language. What did colonialism do when they came to Hawaii and around the world? Shame them for speaking their native tongue. Used education, right? Used education to shatter communities and to create hierarchies in communities. What do? We have used education to do that. I'm talking about my people, guys. This is real. What else did they do? Use religion? How many of you stepped into a Hawaiian space where they were praying and chanting and somebody looked at you as if you didn't belong or you should get in line and do it too? Yep, that happens. Yeah? We are colonizing, we're using the same tools to do the same thing. It's scary, because in 5 generations, guess who's gonna say that? So we really have to take a step back and recalibrate what we do, how we do it, and who we include in this journey. Because in 5 generations, colonial trauma will still exist. It'll just be flip-flopped. And that's not good enough. And then we get to indigenous citizenry and Western citizenry. And my friend Josh Morey shared this with me, right? Because how do we define our community? How do we define citizenry right now? Well, indigenous citizenry, active, inclusive. If you look at any Native community, historically, in order to be a part of it, were born in it? Not really. You had to contribute to it. You all had responsibility. And if you contributed, you were included. Western citizenship. What does that do? Passive, exclusive. You don't have to do crap to be a part of the US. You just gotta be born here. And then you have rights, damn it, right? And then you have this hierarchy of exclusivity happening. Like, we didn't earn any of this. So I really love this idea of indigenous citizenry. That goes back into that trauma, right? How do we now define our communities? And what does this all mean, right? So this journey just is this journey of experience and then recalibration, experience and recalibration. And it's gonna happen forever and ever, because guess what? What you know now, and that's why I had to like recalibrate with you all, like what do you guys know about Aina right now? Because I've been gone for 10 years. What we talked about 15 years ago was super important, but is no longer valuable or relevant today. And that's how it should be. We create a platform to have another conversation, right? And we're always gonna have to upgrade that. What we're talking about 5, 10 years ago is relevant and valuable then, and it's a building block to have another conversation that actually contradicts each other sometimes. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. But what does that all mean? What now? How does that guide our inquiry, right? And then how do we diagnose and make sure that the medicine that we give is appropriate? Again, based on relationships, based on all of that, your positionality, right? Have you guys seen the Uluvehi project? Lenny Huli just created out of EKF. It's really, really cool. I think Kuhao quoted his mother in it. And he said something like, it's the rigor of tradition that allows the privilege of innovation. And I thought that was really, really beautiful. Because in order for us to have these innovative conversations, you gotta go do the work. Take that mana'o lana and turn it into mana'o i'o. You can't just innovate off of ideas. You gotta go and get that i'o first. Get the truth of it, understand it, live it, get it in your flesh. And that innovation, the privilege of innovation, comes from the rigor of that tradition. So I think that's the end of it. I just wanted to thank you guys so much. I know I'm like out of time, but everyone's journey is really important to the whole story that we tell. But we also have to be open to the ideas of relationships really driving all of it. And I know it conflicts sometimes with our research, right? To be separate, but that's a relationship. Separating yourself from an ecosystem is a relationship. But at the end of the day, it's about our communities. Know your why, know your broader why, right? And understand that broader whys actually will create the smaller byproduct whys, right? Like your research project. How do you choose your topic? How do you choose your inquiry? If you're just doing it for a degree, congratulations, you'll get it. But if you do it for the other why, your degree will happen, but you're now contributing to a broader movement and a contribution. But always about relationships. And how do you define our communities, right? That reset didn't happen so recently. That positionality, that aha of like, holy crap, trauma, generational trauma, colonialism, all of this stuff that are really affecting our people. That stuff is real, and it's gonna continue unless we break it, right? And then how do we see our world? And then again, know your why. So thank you guys very much for listening and going on this journey with me. I appreciate all of your time, and I know I'm out of time, but thank you.